I think you'd better stay away. This
game.
There's something wrong with it. It's kind of hard to explain, but...
Is it
broken?
Maybe. And it's not just the
frame rate
either.
okay? I got it. I'll be careful.
I'm not lying.
No, I believe you. It's just, I guess I really don't care if it's
broken
or not. I'm going to
play it
either way.
But why?
I hate myself. Sinners, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host Rebecca Midnight, and today we are looking at the opposite end of the Konami spectrum. If Metal Gear Solid 5 on 7th gen consoles was a miracle port, then the Silent Hill HD collection is a divine curse. This thing is really bad, and it's also really unfortunate because while Metal Gear Solid 5 is relatively accessible on pretty much all the platforms it was released on, the Silent Hill games, especially the Team Silent PS2 era games, are notoriously hard to play in their original format because while they didn't sell poorly in the West, the demand far outweighs the supply, so getting your hands on physical copies will cost you an arm and a leg. Now, I'm fortunate enough to have original copies of 2 and 3 on the PS2, and I even have the original Xbox port as well, so I'm very grateful that I'm able to play those off disc. But for those of you who can't, I actually have a solution that I think is really good, and most people would just tell you for Silent Hill 2 to play the enhanced edition mod for the PC, but with this option you are able to play all of the PS2 era Silent Hill games, and in total it will cost you far less than buying physical copies of these games would. So without any further ado, let's venture on into Silent Hill and take a look at the Silent Hill HD collection. One thing I had forgotten about before I started making this video was that this game has one hell of an install. I no joke sat here for 20 minutes waiting for it, which honestly makes the problems this game has even more egregious. One of the first things you'll notice upon booting up the game and choosing Silent Hill 2 is the option to choose between the new and original voice acting. Hijinks Studios opted to completely re-voice Silent Hill 2 and 3 for this collection, and this was apparently due to Konami not wanting to pay the original actors the proper royalties for their work they did on the game, which, while a bit of a divisive topic in the community, I absolutely think the original voice cast deserved to get paid for the work they did. I don't care if it was in their original contract or not, re-releasing the game 10 years later probably wasn't in their contract either. I see absolutely no reason for Konami to not pay the original cast for their work being reused in this collection, other than just pure greed. But alas, the end result of the situation was that we got the original voices back as an option in Silent Hill 2, but not in 3. While still not great, I think it's still infinitely better than not having the original voices in either title. Now, onto the elephant in the room. Are the new voice actors good? I mean, Hijinks did get some pretty impressive voice talent for the new cast, including the legendary and devilishly handsome Troy Baker as James, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn as Mary, and Laura Bailey for Angela. Well, despite the amazing cast on paper, these new voices just missed the mark entirely for me. The original voice casts all just perfectly fit their characters. Take James for example. Guy Seehey's lighter voice and more nervous inflection is exactly what you would imagine James to sound like. It's not something you would ever consciously think about until it's changed, and then it becomes wholeheartedly obvious how perfect he was for the role. Same for Maria, originally voiced by Monica Horgan. My point is, the new voice actors aren't problematic inherently. They all do a good enough job with the material they were given. The problem is that Team Silent already had the perfect voice cast the first time, so people who hold the originals in high regard were bound to have an issue adjusting to the new voices no matter who they were. These new voice actors all sound like they were given explicit instructions to sound as brooding and serious as possible, and they all sound really bad here. Take a listen.
In my restless dreams, I see that town. You promised you'd take me there again someday. But you never did. Well, I'm alone there now. In our special place. Waiting for you.
I got a letter. The name on the envelope said Mary. My wife's name. It's ridiculous. Couldn't possibly be true. That's what I keep telling myself. A dead person can't write a letter. Mary died of that damn disease 3 years ago.
In my restless dreams, I see that town, Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did. Well, I'm alone there now, in our special place, waiting for you.
I got a letter. The name on the envelope said Mary. My wife's name. It's ridiculous. Couldn't possibly be true. That's what I keep telling myself. A dead person can't write a letter. Mary died of that damn disease 3 years ago.
It really is such a shame, since this cast does not lack talent at all. These voice actors are all amazing. Both Troy Baker and Laura Bailey have so many credits for some of my favorite characters. Unfortunately, they just don't work here. But okay, at least in Silent Hill 2, you have the option to use the original voices. How does Silent Hill 3 stack up? Unfortunately, not very well. Much of the same I said for Silent Hill 2 applies here. Heather's new actress Amanda Lee just isn't up to snuff. She doesn't seem to be a bad voice actress, it's just the same problem as before. She and everyone around her sounds like they're doing their best narration of a noir novel. Heather in particular sounds way too old for her character. She sounds like a 30-year-old doing an impersonation of a teenager, and it just sounds off. Here, take another listen.
My name is Douglas Cartman. I'm a detective.
A detective? Really? Well, nice talking to you.
Hold on. There's someone that wants to meet you. Just let me have an hour. No, a half hour of your time.
My daddy always told me not to talk to strangers.
Heather, I need to speak with you. My name is Douglas Cartman. I'm a detective.
A detective? Really? Well, nice talking to you.
Hold on. There's someone that wants to meet you. Just let me have an hour. No, half an hour of your time.
My daddy always told me not to talk to strangers.
It really is such a shame that we didn't get the option to use the original voices here like we did in 2. But I digress. Let's get back to Silent Hill 2. Getting into the menu, it seems pretty okay. The main menu looks sharp, and at first glance you might be tricked into thinking this game looks quite good. But once we get in game, it's immediately obvious that things are not how they should be. The opening cutscene is noticeably really blurry and compressed. Apparently this is due to hijinks using the highly compressed 30 FPS Bink video cutscenes from the original Xbox and PC port, instead of the uncompressed 60 FPS cutscenes seen in the PS2 version, and using using these inferior cutscenes, they opted to compensate for the lesser frame rate by using a sort of frame generation technique to fake 60 FPS by compiling information from the previous frame and blending it with the next frame. The end result is these cutscenes being exceptionally blurry and unfocused. It almost looks like Vaseline smeared on the camera. It just looks really damn bad, even compared to the Xbox and PC versions. But in my opinion, the single biggest atrocity this port commits is the visuals and performance. Let's start with the fog effect. I mean, it's one of the single most important and recognizable visual assets to the series as a whole, and they absolutely wrecked it here. Standing next to the PS2 original, it's awful. What was a subtle, fairly realistic for the time fog with a slight mist closer to the camera and a smoother fade into the distance becomes a harsh gray smog cloud with a sharp draw-in right in front of your face. I mean, just look at it. I have no idea how they managed to botch this so badly. Even the original PC port did better, and that was also a pretty terrible port for the time. Despite ruining the visual fidelity, the game somehow both managed to run like total garbage. The game targets 30 frames per second, which is ridiculous enough considering we're talking about an early PS2 game here. But it can't even hold that target. Silent Hill 2 will frequently drop well below, usually sticking far closer to 20 FPS. As you guys know from my Metal Gear video, performance drops are something that don't usually bother me much anymore. I play on my PS3 more than any other console, so I'm no stranger to a wobbly frame rate. But this performance is horrible, nearly unplayable at times, and it does tarnish the experience somewhat. Not to mention a whole host of other issues: audio looping, errors, a near constant stutter, of course changing the Silent Hill Ranch sign to Comic Sans. I could go on and on. The point is that this game is broken in nearly every aspect in some way. The smooth performance of the original added a lot to the cinematic experience it was going for. Silent Hill 3 is even worse from a performance standpoint. The game runs in slow motion nearly all the time, and there really seems to be no cause for any of it. You could be walking in a narrow hallway with hardly anything on screen and the game will slow to a crawl. You'll experience weird stutters around enemies only to run past them to find out that it runs worse once they're not being rendered anymore. This is pretty inexcusable from a game that was nearing a decade old at the time this collection came out, and a whole hardware generation before the game ran perfectly fine. I honestly have no idea what could be causing this other than just horrible optimization. As much as I would love to finish these games, since these versions have trophies, I would love a platinum for both Silent Hill 2 and 3, but I just cannot bring myself to suffer through these god-awful ports any more than is necessary for this video. This has been an absolute chore. Seeing these games I hold so dearly be absolutely massacred by both Konami and Hijinks Studios.
I don't want his mother to see him this way. Look how they massacred my boy.
I really do not know what more I can say about these games. Just stay far, far away from this collection, especially for the prices being asked of it being anywhere from $30 to $50. Just don't. So you're probably asking then, well, Becca, if you're telling us to avoid this collection, how would you recommend we play them? Well, I guess that brings us to the most exciting part of this video. I'm going to show you my preferred method for experiencing these games in the modern day if you don't have a physical copy. Now, as for my solution for playing these games, while a lot of people do recommend the Enhanced Edition mod for PC, and I do agree that is a great solution for Silent Hill 2, and I believe there's one for Silent Hill 3 as well, but I like my option better because you can play pretty much the entirety of the good Silent Hill franchise on one console, and it is a more faithful experience than that. So what I would recommend personally is for you to go and get yourself a PlayStation 3. Now, you're probably wondering, oh, backwards compatible model, how does that help me? Well, actually, if you jailbreak your PlayStation 3, you can access the PlayStation 2 Classic Simulator and play a ton of PS2 games on it while while I've heard that custom firmware like EvilNat or Cobra are better for PS2 emulation, Hen is perfectly serviceable and works with any PlayStation 3 model. And with that, you can, while I'm not condoning piracy, I'm also not condoning you to go spend $200 a piece on games as old as I am, so do with that information what you will.
Do what you want, cause a pirate is free. You are a pirate. You're our favorite indeed. Being a pirate is a rarity.
You can get these games through whatever means and convert them with the PS2 Classics GUI and get the config file, because if you don't, then it will not work right. But the config for these games pretty much irons out most of the issues you will have with them, and I have not encountered a single bug in my entire playtime with them so far. And then you can play Silent Hill 1, 2, 3, Origin, Shattered Memories, and if I'm forgetting one, it works. They all work fine, and these are the PS2 versions of these games, the best versions in my opinion to play, and you can play them all on a PlayStation 3. And with Hen, it is pretty safe to go on PlayStation Network. You can install games directly to the hard drive so you don't wear out your Blu-ray drive. Hen is just a really versatile tool for modding your PS3. You can get a really nice PS3 for less than one of these games cost for a physical copy on the PS2. PS3 Slims range from anywhere between $100 and $150 most of the time. I would personally recommend you stick with a CECH 2100 and up. The 2000 series Slim brought over a lot of issues from the fats that makes them a little less reliable and cause a little more trouble, and all of the fats I would personally avoid for your average Joe just because they are not very reliable, and I'm speaking from experience. I have had a ton of them. So yeah, CECH 2100 and up. If you are wanting to do full-on custom firmware over Hen for one reason or another, you're going to want to get a CECH 2100 or 2500. Anything between that range, you're pretty much good to go. If you get a 3000 and up, you will only be able to use Hen. They cannot accept full-on custom firmware. So I just wanted to put that out there so you guys have the necessary information on what you're getting into. And so that is my personal pick for the best way to access these games these days if you are not lucky enough to have a physical copy. And with that, I guess that brings us to the end of our time with the Silent Hill HD collection. May I never have to touch this pile of smelling fucking garbage ever again. I hated this. These ports are so bad, and they're even worse after having experienced good versions of the game. This is my introduction to the Silent Hill series. I didn't have original copies or any other method of playing these games other than the HD collection back when I got it, and thank God it didn't ruin these games for me, because it's almost enough to do that. I think what saved me is that I mostly played Silent Hill 2, which isn't as bad as 3 is performance-wise, but if I'd played 3 first, then my God, would I have turned away and probably never looked back. I have provided you better options to play these games, both of which will cost you less than an original copy, and in the case of the PC versions, or if you already have a PS3, less than the HD collection too, and you will have a far superior time with both options. So go out there, do what you have to do to get your hands on these games, and enjoy, and I promise you'll be in for one of the best horror game experiences you'll ever experience in your life. Thank you for watching, have a great day, and until next time, this is Becca Midnight signing off. Bye for now.